Thank you for joining the Thursday edition of Journalist Hangout. I am Veronica Danik-Boy. Today on the program, Abba Kyari, head of service, engaged in fierce argument over leaked memo. Federal government to recover another $321 million abacha loot from Switzerland. And later on the program, EFCC arraigns payroll fraud suspects. I will be hanging out with Adekunle Yusuf, Tunde Abaton, and Lekon Shote. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Well, Journalist Hangout starts now. The chain of events leading to the reinstatement of the former chairman of the Presidential Task Force on Pension Reforms, that's Abdurrashid Maina, are perhaps the worst puzzles that many Nigerians are struggling to solve. Every shade of it is riddled with confusion. When the news first broke, there was a deafening silence about those who executed the reinstatement. The silence almost shredded the integrity of President Buhari's war against corruption. The media rumbled with trembling curiosity. Nigerians were furious, and President Buhari was forced to sack Maina and ordered an investigation into the imbroglio. Soon, the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation opened up about its complicity in the mess. It said it took the decision in the best interest of the country. But as Nigerians yearned for more answers, a memo written by the head of service of the Federation, Winifred Oyo-Ita, leaked. The letter showed that Mr. President got a wind of the situation and was advised to discourage it. On Wednesday, Nigerians saw a fierce crossfire between an angry head of service and President Buhari's chief of staff, Abba Kyari, before the Federal Executive Council meeting. Reports say the argument was about the leaked memo. What is happening here? I'll stand to you, Tunde.
Well, there's nothing new again that is happening in Nigeria that has never happened before. But what I would like to say is that we can have this kind of crisis, and that the two men who are very senior and highly placed people in this government can carry that particular thing outside the orbit of power, inside the FEC. It says a lot of things about the coordination within the presidency. The chief of staff to the president is about the most senior of all the staffs that works under the president. Is the one that is coordinating the administration of the presidency. If you have to have a shouting match with the head of service, who is the head of all civil servants in Nigeria, yes, it is normal that to anybody that's going to be appointed to any position, it's a career civil servant, the head of service have to be in know about it.
Of course.
Now, if they now have to extend that thing to the FEC meeting, that either it is you that wrote it. After all, the head of service did admit that she authored a memo to the president. But the question now is that who leaked that particular memo? It means there's a lot of mistrust within the presidency. And one would have expected that our president, having been in office, this is the second time he's going to rule Nigeria, one would have expected him to tie some loose ends. And in the last 6 months, much has been on the fact that people are talking about cabal in the presidency. If Nigeria don't believe if there's no cabal, then there's no trust among the top echelons of government in Nigeria. That they can carry that thing inside that thing means that there is deep mistrust among the people who are running the administration of this country. And it is rather unfortunate that two senior men can disagree and fight over a memo. In the first instance, everybody knows that the propriety of asking Maina to return to office is flawed. And that the senior men have to disagree over that thing, it also means that the administration itself is flawed. So what it means is that I think the president have to with the big stick and look at those people who are working at cross purposes with the goal of the government.
All right, let me bring Lincoln in now. Let me start from where he stopped, saying that there's deep mistrust amongst top members of the president's officials. Could that be the case here that could have led to the exchange of words even at the FEC meeting?
Veronica, you remember, was it last month or less than 2 months ago, when the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources said he had no access to the president. And he then fired, shall we call it another memo, to the president, complaining that the Group MD of the NNPC was bypassing, bypassing one of them, him. What I'm trying to say is that it's clear that this administration, you remember even last year, when some ministers were speaking against each other. That was even the time last year when the Minister of Finance was saying some things against the Central Bank Governor, and Central Bank Governor was also contradicting. So for me, it appears to me that there's no coordination in this administration at all. I think Mr. President is extremely detached. So people do what they like. There are no ground rules, I suspect, and that is not good for the administration of this country. Now, there's a question you haven't asked me. Listen, if there was a leak, big deal. It happens. It's not as if it's a new thing that letters leak from any government in any part of the world. The point is this: are your hands clean? Why would, let us agree that Mrs. Minifred leaked the letter to the press. Let's agree. What is that to the Chief of Staff to the President? Is he saying, he did not even mention him in the memo. He only said, I had a verbal discussion with the President. And I said, please, sir. And the woman has not even said what Mr. President said in return. So what's the problem of this man? Is he like he's the, shall we say, is the bodyguard of the mind of the President or what? I don't get it. And then he now has to treat somebody else's wife like that in an open forum. I think something is wrong.
Adekunle, now, several words has been used. There is no coordination, mistrust, and all of it. It's seemingly. But then, like he rightly said, could there be something that we don't know that could have given rise to this exchange of words?
First of all, when you look at this administration very well, you will see the hands of the Chief of Staff to the President. Very bold in everything. You see, you forget the Kachuku allegations of blocking him to see whether it's true, whether it's not true. The fact that that memo got leaked, I wanted to believe that the memo never reached the president.
That's why it got leaked.
This one on Maina, most people truly, believe that President Muhammadu Buhari will do the right thing for his country if he has all the information. I want to believe strongly that he didn't, that memo from the head of service didn't get to Mr. President. The issue of Maina is a needless controversy. A government doesn't require another. See what happened with Maina under Jonathan. It's a scandal that can pull down the entire government. So I want to believe that when you look at this Chief of Staff to the President, it's like he's all in all. So much that I begin to wonder that the failure or success of this administration is in his own hands because of the way he runs his affairs. A Chief of Staff, when you look at it from 1999 to now, I don't think there's any Chief of Staff in the presidency that is more powerful than General Abdullah. Very effective, very hardworking, everything you can say of positive qualities. But you will never see him. He was operating under the cloak of anonymity. You won't get him, you won't see him. But everything gets done. But now, this one, even when the president is happy to smile to the camera. His chief of staff must be by his either right or left. When he wants to welcome anybody, he must, please, this is not the first presidency in this country. I'm not happy with the way the current chief of staff to the president is running that office. And you will see it when you watch the camera very well. You see the majestic, come on, we are in a democracy.
But back to the question, could there be something hidden that we don't know that could have given rise to the exchange of words? Yes, it was leaked.
Because by the leakage of the memo, the chief of staff is being put on the spot. It is, an indictment of his own, office. And in this age, just if, using one handset, you can just snap, and 100 pages, you can send it. So it doesn't have to come from the head of service. It doesn't have to come from the chief of staff himself. They have staff that workers under their various units. Just with your phone, you can just snap it, or textbook, let alone memo. So that is the issue the man is not happy about. I want to believe so.
Well, Tunde, some have called the verbal exchange a way of him trying to intimidate Winifred Oyo-Ita. But one wonders, what really is his interest in this matter?
Well, I think I'd like to go back to what you have said. I think there's a Yoruba saying is that however long and fine the nose of a gardener, the person who employs him is his master. No matter how brilliant the chief of staff is, he cannot tower above the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But I want to believe that in this case, it appears the president has employed somebody who is bigger than him. If you can run around a president, a lot of people have complained about the fact that they cannot gain access to the president. Top notchers in the party have complained that they cannot gain access to the president. The wife of the president has complained that those people who are running the administration of her husband are not part of those people who help him to power. All these things is enough to show that, just like we have in the Shagari era, later, Alhaji Umaru Dikko used to be the power behind the throne. I think the power behind this government is the chief of staff. And if it is in the national interest, a lot of leakages, a lot of mistrust, a lot of intimidation that is being shown in the public now will not have come out. But so far it is not in the national interest. I think the buck stops at the table of the president. No matter how powerful your employee is, it cannot be more powerful and more influential and have overriding power over you. I think the buck stops because a leader hires the kind of person that he deserves. I think the buck stops on the desk of President Mohamed
Agreed, but again, my question is, what could be Abba Kyari's interest in this matter?
Well, the interest is that perhaps behind the scene, the leaf that is dancing on the surface of the water, the drummer is bending the water. Maina may have some people in the presidency that actually facilitated his coming back to power. But if it is not so, what is the big deal about the head of service, who is the head of all civil servants, like I said, complaining about the manner in which somebody is being smuggled back, and the chief of staff to the president, who is supposed to be working to protect the interests of the president, now undermining that particular memo that it will serve the interests of the government. So it shows that we are yet to hear anything about the Maina thing. It means people who helping to come back into government are the ones that are undermining the government, and are the ones that are behind that thing. And it also shows that the hand of the chief of staff might not have been clean in the process of illegally recalling the large Maina back to power.
Back to power. But then, some have said that Winifred Oyo-Ita is also culpable in the matter because she got a wind of this whole issue sometime in February and did not say anything until October 11th. Why would she have waited?
Well, Veronica, the president was sick, went away and came back again, and then went away for another 104 days.
Yeah.
Okay? And then you know how this thing worked. According to the report, you see, it's not as if it was a one-man show.
No, it's not.
The office of the Attorney General said, oh, this guy is good to go. And then forwarded the letter or a memo to the
head of service.
Civil Service Commission.
Bypassing
the head of service. And I have been a civil servant before. I know that you bid your time, you take your time. Because these things, she can be fired if she doesn't handle it pretty well. Somebody else's problem, she now be the one to be the victim. It has happened several times.
She was just following due process.
So she was being careful. She wanted to be able to establish things and be certain that even when the president was not around, was the vice president quite in charge? Was the acting president quite in charge? Yes, acting president by constitution, yes. But truly, in terms of getting things done, was he truly in charge? So she may have been waiting and watching until she knew that, okay, it is now clear, I can then make a beeline. And then she had a one-on-one with the president, who is the employer of Abba Kyari.
Okay.
And she was hoping that something would be done about it. And then nothing was done. So she then decided to follow up and say, and then make reference to the fact that I had a one-on-one with the president, even though she didn't tell us what the president's reaction was. But, you know, and if I know her, if I know a civil servant very well, when she was talking to the president, it is not impossible that there was a witness there. Please carry my file, let's go. Do you understand? And then she would just mention it. It could even be at the FEC meeting, as she was saying, and a PAMSEC might be standing beside her. That would be a witness. You understand what I'm saying? And somebody might say, don't worry, madam, this one we are in it together. And then some people now brought this man in circumstances that bypass the office of the head of service. You need to understand that. And then she mentioned, and she was hoping that Mr. President would do something about it after she sent this thing in.
But the ministry
and she may also know, just as I said, that we know ourselves, hands reach hands. There are civil servants in the office of the president, even though the chief of staff is their head. They are still civil servants. They are career civil servants who know that ultimately at the end of the day, they are still going to report to Mrs. Oyo-Ita. So they may facilitate or get some information around for her to know that, madam, you better make a move now. This is the time to make your move now. And then if it appears the president, again, if she is preventing him, if he is preventing her from seeing the president, as he has done to several other people, then the only option to her would have been to leak. So, like I said, leaking is not a big deal.
It's not a big deal.
It's done. It's part of governance. You leak, so it was done. Now she has gotten some attention. And then, because you're asking Adekunle, what is Mr. Kyari's issue in this? His issue is, one, she has finally put him on the spot. Nobody was going to put him on the spot. As a matter of fact, everybody else, and I presume that even Mr. Malami was not going to put him on the spot. He had to comply and finally find a way to send a memo and say, well, my hands are clear, I've done what you want, and that's it. You understand? So we need to even check the date that Malami wrote his letter. Was the president in the country at that time?
All right. Now, Adekunle, it seems that the move she made, that from every of her chances to get the president's attention, is seeming to want to rope her in one way or the other, because the Ministry of Interior is saying that she approved the posting of Maina to the Interior.
Exactly.
As far as I'm concerned, anybody that castigates, Oyo-Ita, is not a lover of Nigeria. She deserves to be commended.
For being bold.
Believe me, not many Nigerians can do this. When you have a system that wants to rein in anybody, that this is what we want and nothing else, to challenge that kind of system is not easy. And women don't easily get angry. Look, if you watch the video, look at the visuals very well. You will see that she's a woman that is ready for the worst. And at a point, look at her face very well. You will see that she was very, very angry, visibly. And by the time she went, to take her seat, anything, you will see it on her face.
She went back. She went back again.
You will see, but you will see that this is one woman that is. So believe me, in this whole issue, I give her a lot of commendation, because by that memo, we now know that it is most likely Mr. President didn't have the full information about Maina's case. And the fact that when the Mr. President, announced the sack of Maina, you will see that the statement never reflected that Mr. President was in the know of everything. Okay, probe the circumstances and still submit the same report to the Chief of Staff, who, as you can also assume, will also sit and whatever.
But I'm certain, or it is possible that the Attorney General of the Federation had all the details.
By now, in a very serious government, the Attorney General of the Federation has a lot to tell Nigerians. Beyond, in the national, what do you mean by that? What is national interest? What was done for Maina is never in the national interest. So don't tell me that.
Because he still has cases to answer.
He said the Attorney General has a lot of cases to answer. He has a lot of issues, to tell Nigerians. It's not the only one, other ones, but he himself, because you can just take, a legal case and interpret it the way you like because it will suit one interest. They will know what they wanted to do for Maina. Now, Mr. Dambazao also has something to tell us on this issue. So not just putting HoS and the head of service on the spot, no. She deserves commendation. Whoever leaked that memo must be a patriotic Nigerian. Yes. I don't care where it got leaked. It should be commended. They should commend the person. Yes, the government that once opened, they call it whistleblowing, or what do they call it? Yes. The government should be happy that this kind of whistleblowing is not only when somebody embezzles money. You can give us information that will help the public discourse. This is good for us. They shouldn't castigate the.
As good as this is for us, how we handle it is a of major importance to Nigerians, because Nigerians want to see the end of this case, the logical end of this case. Tunde, how would you, or what would you expect? What are your expectations of how the government or the president handles this case? Because, like he said, there are persons who need to give answers to Nigerians.
Well, I think in the first instance, as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, he swore an oath to defend the interests of Nigeria. And as the Chief Executive and the person that is in charge of affairs, he should be dispassionate enough as to how he treats all those people who are involved, from the Chief of Staff to the Head of Service to the Director of SSS and to the Attorney General of the Federation of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. If the president is not dispassionate, Nigerians are likely to sweep it under the carpet, and it is not going to be good for this government. Because the woman did state, she stated that she did it because it will undermine the anti-corruption crusade of the President Buhari government. And if President Buhari should allow this thing to be swept under the carpet, it all means that, because when you're talking of corruption, corruption does not amount to stealing money. Corruption, if you subvert a particular process, or you undermine a system, it is also corruption. If you act in personal interest and you aggregate it to national interest, it is also corruption. And from what we have seen so far, there's no national interest in what anybody has done. If somebody who stole about billions of naira of people who work for 30 years, 35 years, the person got a slap in the wrist judgment, and you now smuggle the person back into that particular system, then it means that you are acting against national interest. So I will appeal to President
we do not understand what is
national interest.
Well,
we appeal to the President to be dispassionate enough and to know that all eyes are on him, and that this one will actually test the sincerity and commitment of him and those people who are working with him in rescuing Nigeria.
The integrity of this government, like we have rightly said, is now in question. How do we, put it together such that we don't lose sight of it?
I don't know if you've seen a video graph sent out by former Vice President Atiku Muhammad. The contest for Atiku Abubakar. 2019 is just by the corner. And if a government comes in and says anti-corruption, economics, and security, and beats his set and say, well, we have done something about Boko Haram to an extent. And then the issue of anti-corruption, because this man is regarded all over the world, not just Nigeria, as Mr. Clean. I'm talking about President Muhammad Buhari. And then if an issue like this is good, listen, the way we are not judges here, no. So we cannot say whether Maina is, we cannot pronounce him, but at this stage, where he is right now, you don't even want to touch him with an electric pole, not to talk of a 10-foot pole.
All right, if you could hold the thought, we have Candy from Adamawa. Are you there?
Yes, please.
Go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, I have this to say, that the chief of staff is the biggest problem the Buhari administration has. Because he has been the one modeling a lot of things in that administration. In everything, you always find his hands there. And I want to say that just like the other man there said, that Winifred should be commended. Because I think what that man did, from my own understanding, is that he wants to bully that woman. But I think she's a hard nut to chew.
All right, Candy.
She really needs to be commended. That is my view.
Thank you for your contribution.
So my submission, Veronica.
Yes.
I hope that the president is not harboring an enemy within, what's sometimes called fifth columnist. I hope he's not working for another candidate and then helping to destroy this presidency. I just hope so. And if I think so, I think the president who works closely with him should be the first person to suspect and be sure. And then if he has to ask him to go, please let him go very quickly before he spoils his presidency and then spoils his chance for 2019. That's actually the way I'm going.
All right. So do you see that happening? The presidency is saying that Abba Kyari, you have to go. Because earlier you talked about wielding the big stick and all of that.
I don't think that can happen, because when you have tried to just analyze this presidency, it's a presidency that is most reluctant to relieve anybody of his or her job, even when they have been confronted with mind-boggling, evidence of malfeasance. But in spite of that, President Muhammadu Buhari has still not lost me. I still believe, it still means where he can still do a lot for this country. But people like Maina, I wanted to give him, benefit of that. Maybe he will come out to face the court. But just like he did under Jonathan, he has also gone into hiding.
When his aide said his life was threatened.
Maina, threatened by who?
By who?
He has lost me thoroughly. The way the chief of staff does his work, he has since lost me a long time ago. He loves more limelight than his job, so he has lost me. I want to say that this Attorney General has lost me. Look at everything he does. Especially look at the statement. I'm a Nigerian. These are Nigerians. You're also a Nigerian. So you know what is in the national interest. You know what is in the interest of our country. So don't tell me bullshit. So when you look at all this, except that now that second term seems to be in the activation mode,
that's right.
Maybe the government may, but I will be most disappointed in the president if all of a sudden they now realize Mrs. Oyo-Ita has not done so, or he has been, and so that looking for a way to get rid of her. If that happens, then the president will lose me totally.
Well, we need to move now. After the break, Nigeria to recover another $321 million about a loot from Switzerland. Stay with us.
My name is Abdullah Umar Gannaji, the governor of Kano State. I do watch journalists hang out. I don't miss it. I ask you, please don't miss it. Thank you.
Well, a former Nigerian head of state will be remembered as the worst kleptomaniac known to modern history. His obsession with stealing was and still is perhaps unrivaled on the African continent. Reports say the former military dictator stole about $11.5 billion from Nigeria. Between 2006 and 2016, the Swiss government returned to Nigeria $723 million. That's about 142 billion naira of stolen funds seized from his family. In 2014, the government of the Principality of Liechtenstein returned to Nigeria $227 million worth of loot, and the state of Jersey in Channel Island offered to return £350 million to Nigeria. Sadly, these jaw-dropping figures did not end there. In 2016, the Swiss government said it was considering the repatriation to Nigeria of another $321 million. On Wednesday, the federal government authorized the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, to endorse an agreement between Nigeria and Switzerland to facilitate the repatriation of another $321 million Abacha loot at next month's Global Forum on Asset Recovery in the United States. The question is, will this change anything? Tunde?
Well, I think, like you rightly remarked, perhaps that government will go down in the history of this country as the most kleptomaniac. But I think at the end of the day, it is not impossible that the Jonathan government will surpass Abacha, except the fact that there was a spread during Jonathan government from among the ministers. Having said that, I think Nigerians are no more interested in whether they are returning any loot. What Nigerians will be interested in, government should come out and tell us how much have been recovered so far. What have we used the money for? Yes, last year, during this year budget, the government said that a substantial part of the loot that was recovered last year will form part of 2017 national budget. But let the government come out. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo spent 8 years. There was some money that were returned, Abacha loot. Jonathan spent 6 years, Abacha loot. Now, how much has Nigeria recovered? Because Nigerians are no more interested in all these figures. If the figures do not translate into what you use the money for, all this money we are talking of is enough to change all the railway system in Nigeria. It is not to build about 20 or 30 teaching hospitals. It is not to build 200 secondary schools all over Nigeria. So the figure, it has no meaning. Whether the government should come out and tell us all the money that have been recovered so far, what have they used it for?
Perhaps Lekon could tell us what the government has been using the money.
I wish I could. But very good question. You see, you keep saying you recover money. Have you plugged the holes? Has this government plugged the holes? It's not.
When you say blocked the holes, what holes are you talking about?
Stealing.
Stealing. Are people still stealing or not?
Of course they are.
Because that's more important. You recall Oronsai.
Yes.
Who came in.
It's a report.
And then he says, can we please streamline
90
how
agencies.
we run this government? Can we attach deliverables to money spent?
But that report was not visited.
No, he recommended that 90 agencies.
His recommendations.
Yeah, recommendations.
Out of 263 agencies, he said they should be reduced to 161. The point is this, that see, the system that we are running is such that it's subject to abuse. And it appears to me that some people don't want this thing addressed because that is how they make money. And do you even know, I think I was reading somewhere some 2 or 3 or 4 months ago, that a government in the Scandinavian countries, the Buhari government went to them and said, how about our money? They say, oh, if you want, yes, we admit that there's some diluted money with us in this Scandinavian country. However, if you want it, you have to lift the ban on the production of fish into Nigeria. And then we now trade in. So it appears to me that there's still a lot of money that we don't even know anything about, that we are not likely to recover ever. But for me is this, what are we doing to ensure that this thing does not continue? And I have not seen anything. Especially when you have some people who call themselves chief of staff who are directors of NNPC who are doing all kind of things and, shall we say, bucking the system, making sure it doesn't work properly. And the president is so detached.
He's not concerned.
It appears he's not concerned about what is happening in this country. And if we voted for him to do something, he needs to please do this job.
But this present government talked about in its plan when it was coming in of tackling corruption, strengthening the institutions that handle all of this. So far, how would you evaluate its performance in terms of blocking these leakages and ensuring that all that we talk about, those stealing funds, looted funds, and all of that are recovered?
It is more of the same. You see, this idea about fight corruption, let's fight corruption, it's not new to us. But the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, was actually the one who made it like, that's what we must do because of what happened under Abacha, creating ICPC, creating EFCC. But when you look at the modus operandi of ICPC, EFCC, we are not fighting corruption. Nigeria is not fighting, this government is not fighting corruption. Because it is easier you block me from stealing than running after me after I've stolen. So they just attack the branches, the leaves, these things. Nobody's attacking the roots.
Of course.
So they need to do a holistic re-examination of the entire civil service, political system, everything that we do. So what motivates people to steal? Ask questions. They need to know. What can we do as incentives to reduce? Of course, those who will still steal, but at least let's first of all undo certain things. It will reduce. Then let's do this, let's do this. There are a lot of things that we can do. Everywhere in the world, there is corruption. But most countries have come out with arrangements to discourage you, to make it very difficult for you to steal. But in Nigeria, the entire system encourages you to steal. What about TSA? They say with TSA, it's all about that. It's not true. Ask all the agencies, what is in this government, a lot of things still going on. Believe me, many of the information will not be in the public space until after this government is out. So that's usually the nature of our system. But we are seeing anybody that wants to fight corruption, we need to sit down. It's not a job the EFCC alone can do. You need to do it across the board. I know this government is very interested in that, but it doesn't know how to go about it. To me, the way this government is doing it, they are just doing it like every other government. So, but we are not fighting corruption.
All right, we have,
Veronica.
Quickly, please, before I come back to you, Lawrence is on the line from Ogun State. Lawrence, are you there? Go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sir.
Yeah, I greet all the guests.
Thank you, sir.
Hello?
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
we can hear you.
Yeah, number one, I as the Nigeria, I can never sympathize with Mr. President. But Chief of Staff was appointed by him, and to the General was appointed by him, and if they are not working for him and for Nigeria, what are they doing? They to fire them. That is number two. Some of the guys is talking about the system. It's good to have system, but who's going to drive the system? Is it not the same Nigeria? Unless Nigerians change their attitude toward nation building, we won't get anywhere. That's my contribution. God bless you.
All right, thank you, Lawrence. Lincoln, you wanted to say
I was
something?
going to say, you see, when you have, just as if you read my mind, you have BVN. Now you are saying, oh, Nigerians who live abroad.
BVN?
BVN, sorry. You are now thinking of how to now put them on the train of BVN, sorry. Now you have TSA. Yet, Veronica, some individuals put money in the vaults of banks with the connivance of the managing directors of some of these banks. And nothing has happened to any of these managing directors. Huge sums of money, even foreign exchange, $153 million, and the rest of it in bank vaults without paper trails. But whistleblower blew whistle, and they found that. And none of these MDs has been sanctioned. Nothing has been discussed. None of it has even been called to say, can you please explain what happened? Not a single one. Are we serious about fighting corruption? I would have thought that by now a lot of those managing directors will have been explaining how money got into their bank vaults in any of the branches. I'm sure wherever the money was, it was in a vault, in a branch, or some branches. You understand? Yeah. And then whoever got this, shall we say, franchise to do this stuff should have been held up to explain how far the spread of the franchise. And then everybody picked up. Nothing has happened. We just keep quiet. I mean, the point is, I'm trying to make is that it's his money stolen from government that ended up in the bank vaults. And the government is aware. This president is aware, and nothing has happened.
Does that show our particular political will to strengthen our legal and, let's say, anti-corruption agencies today?
Well, I think what we have to look at is that when we talk about the system or institution, it is somebody that will drive it. By statement of intention and purpose, President Muhammad Buhari appears to have integrity, and he made it known to everybody that he wants to fight corruption. But if you say you want to fight corruption and you appoint some people who are busy day in, day out, undermining that thing that you represent, and you also find it difficult, it takes the pressure of Nigeria, after the report has been submitted, to let them go. It means there is more to it than meets the eye. If somebody within this government can still award grass-cutting contracts for hundreds of millions of naira, and the person still remain in the system, after he has been exposed, after investigation has been done, the president finds it difficult, after the report has been submitted to him, 2 months, to act on it. It means it is not impossible that there are many others like that in the system. Like he said, when the government is over, we are going to hear a lot of mind-boggling things. But the fact remains that there are a lot of people who are undermining the system within the government. So that this the president cannot do anything.
In a dire situation, if we say that, okay, these people are there, evidence is there, nothing has been done. So what really are we doing?
Since this government came on board, I've never seen anything in terms of holistic reform of the police system, the banking system, the civil service, and the criminal administration justice. If you don't do these 4 areas, you are not fighting corruption. You are just making noise, telling people, hey, we are fighting corruption. Hey, we are fighting corruption. There is no government that can fight corruption without reforming those 4, subsectors. The banking system is at the heart of the financial, malfeasance in our country. Without the banking system, you can't do most of these things. Then, when you get caught, you know the abracadabra that happens within our courts. You must do something about it. The police system, because of, what happens with our police system. Then the civil service. This government has not done anything in this 4 areas. Then you now came up, TSA. Come on, if you don't have, you see, all these things, they have, there's a lot of intellectual, underpinning that can come into this. If the government, because the government is simply, you can bring in their talents everywhere. Nigerians are wonderful, doing a lot everywhere. Bring them in. What can we do? Let's start the journey. And I expected that a government that was voted in on the mantra of change, that is where we're going to start from. But we now say TSA. TSA that most, government agencies, universities, all of them, they know how to bypass. Nigerians have seen people who have 7 BVN numbers. I didn't believe it was possible. Yes. You see many Nigerians having 10 BVN numbers. I said, come on. They said you can't have more than 2. They will just laugh. And they will show you. So you ask, what is wrong with our system?
What really is wrong?
So with all this, and you are talking about we want to take 300 million Abacha loot, we will still see more and more of that. And as we speak, some people are stealing as we speak. Some people are stealing.
They are looting.
And don't let anybody believe you that it is only when you are with the federal government that you are stealing. No. In the state governments, in the local governments, everywhere.
We have Adewale on the line. Adewale, are you there?
Yeah, Adewale Adetoro calling from Ketu.
All right, go ahead.
Well, if I may ask, what sin could Nigerians have committed that God cannot forgive us so that we have a leader at least for once in this country? Now, you see, can't people just put our law, let it be amended that will give room for the Nigerian Medical Association to form a panel at least every 2 years to check the mental state of our president? Because I'm so confused beyond doubt. The president is not in charge, and he doesn't know what is happening in Afro. The cabals are ruling, and the country is in trouble. We are not fighting corruption like our men there have said. Somebody is fighting corruption. If you don't build institutions, whatever you do for 4 years will go into the drain. We are not fighting corruption seriously at all. The National Assembly, we are the people there that can rise up and fight for us. And let us build our institutions so that we can share corruption. Abacha never fought corruption. What they set up is just to cover up the people that offend you, you try them. Why even corruption is you yourself, you perpetrate corruption. So the country is in trouble. Thank you.
Thank you, Adewale, for your contribution. And the next topic is similar, is linked to this, the previous topic, talking about with the mind-boggling Abacha loot. One would have thought that the federal government had learned to tighten its structures and block loopholes, but it seems not much has been learnt from history. Nigeria is still being led by a corrupt few. Beyond the political class, civil servants are Nigeria's worst thieves. Last month, the Accountant General of the Federation, Ahmed Idris, said so far the President Muhammadu Buhari administration has saved 120 billion naira from ghost workers thanks to the bank verification number. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, was able to trace several accounts linked to a few names and arraigned 9 alleged payroll fraudsters on Wednesday for stealing about 293 million naira. Is it impossible for Nigeria to make stealing difficult for public officials and politicians? Is it impossible? Is it, Tunde?
Well, I think a refusal or inability to steal while in the system is an aberration. If you don't steal, then you are looked on as somebody who has missed it. If we can have, look at the names of those people who are involved. A couple, they were involved in stealing money for 3 good years. And they smuggled the names of their nieces and nephews inside their system. At the end of the day, they made away with about 93 million or so within the particular system. It means our system is so funny that you can get away with that particular thing, and the thing will continue on and on and on. The other time, the Minister for Finance, I think we have to praise her, because during her time, she was able to reduce the monthly payroll by 5 billion naira per month, which means at every point in time, the last 5 or 10 years, civil servants have been stealing 5 billion through ghost workers. What it means is that everybody is corrupt through and through. I know that if we do a census of all the houses in Abuja today, 80% of those houses belong to people who are working within the civil service system, and they are still within the system. So what it means is that the most difficult thing for a minister or a president to avoid is not being compromised by a system that is already compromised before being sworn into office. Because if a couple working within the system can smuggle in names of their family for years, and they were doing it, it means the system, everybody there is corrupt. And it means we have to really look at something. I think the government has to do something.
But the government has come up with different means, like we mentioned earlier, TSA, BVN, different approach to try to, block these holes. And then people seem to, like the Minister of Finance said at some point, that they undermine the systems. They still go ahead. So does that mean that technologically we are still lagging behind or something?
Veronica, even technology is helping them. You see, there's something in government accounting, payroll accounting, government payroll accounting. It's called nominal roll. That is the list of the officers, all from the top to the messenger to the gate man, in each particular office, serviced by a pay office. That should be the source of the list of people to be paid. Now, where the head of an agency and the accountant decide that they will pad it, because I think that's language in Nigeria these days now, you pad the nominal roll, okay? And the way it goes is that a voucher, the Kalamazoo system that we used in the past, you fill in everything, total, net, total is, then you write the check, you write a voucher. The details, which is like a spreadsheet of 2,000 names, 300 names, 500 names, the director will only endorse and look for the total and sign, and then sign the check. He understands what is going on. He knows, and then thank God that you pay through banks. And then the thing just goes. You make use of technology to defeat technology itself. Veronica, I don't know if you are aware that some banks, I don't want to mention, there are 2 banks now that have employed hackers now into their system, who will be checking, who will be hacking into their banking system in order to strengthen their administrative control, accounting control, internal control. There is nobody doing these jobs. When government auditors, internal auditors come to audit a government agency, all they are looking for is not to do the job, but what are you going to give to us? The same thing with the external auditors. And then the problem of the external auditors, I'll tell you this. Somebody with a BSc chemistry or biochemistry who is working in an accounting firm, led by somebody who just got his ICANN 3 years ago, who doesn't have all the experiences. He also with his BSc in architecture or something, or archaeology, he's leading the audit team. He's not well-grounded. He doesn't have a degree in accounting. You can say people can improve, yes. Now, within that period, before he even gets his experience to be, they draft him to go and audit. And then when he goes there, he hasn't gone to do any job. He has gone to collect Baba, as they call it.
But then,
so there's no control. That's what I'm trying to say.
So it's all hope lost. We can't control it. We can't block the loopholes. Because the civil service, as it is said, is not result-oriented, and it's over-bloated. We keep spending monies to pay salaries. What do we do?
Do you know the funniest thing in Nigeria? Nobody ever talks about Auditor General's office. If that office, because if I were the president of Nigeria, it's either I scrap that office or they work. But they don't work for Nigeria, they work for themselves. Recently, some weeks ago, you see some people who are posted to polytechnics or federal polytechnics from the Auditor Generals, and you see the kind of, it's like, you know, you're falling from grace. They weren't happy. They wanted to be posted to some of these big. Why? In those places, there will be nothing there. I said, So, in all this, is an indictment on the office of the Auditor General of the Federation that all this are happening, because every government expenditure is meant to be vetted. And after the expenses have been made, they also need to go back and vet them again. But do they do that? They will only do it on the basis of what they can say. What is in it for us? I don't want to mention names. I would have been mentioning some universities, government. What happened recently that I know that I can. So with all this, are you saying is it hopeless for us? I don't believe it is hopeless. This government, this Buhari administration can still salvage the situation if it truly means what he says about anti-corruption.
One of the grounds the ASU people had against the government when they disagreed last month was that they didn't want the university system to be listed among the TSA. Why? Because they want to be controlling their funds. But I now ask them one question. If you are still receiving subvention from the government, then it means you are subject to the control of that government. It has to audit you. But if you are generating your money yourself, you are not taking any cover from anybody.
They even know how to bypass the
TSA. But if you are generating yourself, you can say that way, you cannot audit me. But if the government is giving you subvention, who are you to say that the government cannot audit you?
All right, gentlemen, we're running out of time, but thank you very much for coming on the show today. That's all we can take at this time. But that's all on Journalist Hangout. Join us tomorrow for another interesting episode of the program. Watch the repeat broadcast tonight at 11. You can also watch Journalist Hangout on other platforms showing on the screen and on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I am Veronica Danik Boy. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.